I personally will never buy the store brand of frozen waffles.
So I basically secretly edited a wedding film for them.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast. I am one of your hosts, Sam. I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Nick.
Hello, everyone.
I think he usually says that when he's with his other co-hosts on his other podcast, which if you guys haven't listened to The Humble Hustle, go check that podcast out as well. That is Nick's other podcast. Great stuff over there. But yeah, today we're coming to you from the Ascend Studio. Can we call it the Ascend Studio?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I have a office music playlist, and I literally call it the Ascend Studio playlist.
Makes sense. And today we're talking about style as it pertains to a lot of different things in your wedding, but I guess more specifically, hiring your vendors based off of style and what you guys connect with. So we're going to go into a couple of different aspects of how style applies, but I guess first things first, like, why would you say that it's like so important to hire vendors based off the style that you're going for?
I mean, it's pretty no-brainer, I feel. It's like, if you don't resonate with the style, you're not going to like the final product. So obviously get something you want. It's like you wouldn't, buy chocolate ice cream if you only like vanilla. Like you buy what you want. So like, I think checking to make sure all your vendors fit your style is really straightforward, honestly. Like, why wouldn't do that?
Well, yeah, I think here's why people kind of like sacrifice style is because there's a lot of people who kind of just price shop. Yeah, for weddings, which please stay within your budget. Don't go over budget just because like you feel like you're forced to, but it shouldn't be the first priority. First priority should be doing something that's intentional for what you want to get out of your wedding. And if that means you're hiring a videographer, a photographer, a florist because of the particular style they have, then that's a good thing. Here's an analogy. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. You kind of threw me on this because of the ice cream, but frozen waffles. I personally will never buy the store brand of frozen waffles because I like Eggos so much, and I don't think any store brand of frozen waffle can do as good of a job that Eggo waffles does. They're just so superior in every other way. And I have the same thing about English muffins and bagels. I won't buy the store brand of those things because the name brand of those things is just better.
Name brand's gonna be better for sure. Like, I can't.
But sometimes you can sacrifice it. Like, I'll buy a store brand pasta. I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay, yes, it really depends on the product. Waffles, I can get behind that. Bagels, I definitely prefer name brand. I'm willing to sacrifice on a bagel,
but I will pay the premium because I connect with the taste, the style of the waffle, if you will. Yeah. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like when you're thinking about wedding vendors, is some of them, if you need to pay a slight premium for the style you prefer, I mean, it's ultimately a decision on what you want to get out of your wedding. If budget is more important to you, by all means, save a little bit. But I think specifically photography, videography is so impacted on the style you choose because you want your special day to kind of like be conveyed in the best light,
Right.
So when it comes to style, there's a few different kind of like types that come to mind.
Let's start with video.
Specifically with video.
So this is where this whole episode kind of spurred off of us just talking off the mic literally 20 minutes ago. So here we are talking about videography style. Yeah. So lead us into it.
So I guess let's talk about our style, what we would define. Because there's other videographers out there who the items in their package could be identical to ours, but they serve a completely different target audience than we do.
Correct.
They could have the same exact deliverables where if you were price shopping, you could compare those two things like apples and oranges essentially, and they would look the same on paper, but you're like forgetting the different styles that each of these videographers have. So I think the words that we use a lot that it kind of like describe our style the best are cinematic and elegant.
Yeah. I would also throw in narrative.
Yeah. And there's a whole other conversation to be had about the word cinematic and what it means. But I think that like it does kind of convey how we shoot things to couples and clients who might not, know or understand how to put what we do into words. So I think cinematic and elegant kind of like embodies it pretty well. We use a lot of motion control, and by that I mean we use gimbals. That's why we are the Gimbal Guy podcast. We are pretty much always on some form of stabilization, except for when we get to the dancing part of the day, we take that off. We go a little bit more high energy, using tripods.
And that wasn't necessarily by intentional choice. That just came from our background. Like what we did prior to this was all very slow moving things, smooth on gimbals. So that was just the style of filmmaking that we've learned on, and that just translated for us into filming weddings. So it wasn't a conscious choice. It just, we kind of just fell into it and we just became really good at it, and that this is now our style. Yeah. But we know plenty of other people who don't use gimbals at all. Mm-hmm. And their films are also great.
Yeah, because there's a whole other kind of category of videographers, and I mean we've played around with it before. We've experimented with some handheld stuff here and there. I think it's getting a little bit more popular.
It's more popular, but
I mean, what do you think of the handheld style? I mean, you have some opinions on it.
I do, and so personally, it's not my style. Mm-hmm. So when things like, if it's not something I would personally purchase, it just gets hard for me to like. I mean, I'm sure it's for everyone, but like I feel hard. It's harder for me to relate, and like harder for me to really, I don't know, understand the side, because it's just something I would never purchase for myself. Mm. But that being said, it's like I can see why it's popular. I can see the draws to it, and the people who do it, and the people we know who do it, are really good at it. Yeah, and the final product looks great. We were just watching a video 30 minutes ago. And it looks great. And you could definitely feel that they were using the handheld motions intentionally. And like they did it the right way. The problem, for the most part, is that it's hard. Filming handheld is very hard.
It's incredibly difficult to do well.
Yes. And a lot of people do it and like think they're doing it well, but they're not. Like, in order to be a good handheld filmmaker, you need to practice a lot. Yeah. Like we are really good videographers, but we can't just pick up a camera and go handheld and make a great film. Right. I mean, I personally can, because I've never really practiced. So like I'm not good at it.
I've experimented with it.
You've done it more than I have, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've run into instances where I'm like, in the moment, I might think it's like a good shot. I'm like, oh, this looks... Because there's something about handheld style. So you said you wouldn't purchase or like... Yeah,
it's just not a style that I would hire a handheld I wouldn't want it for myself.
I would consider it. I'm open to a lot of different styles. Like, I think the videographers who do it really well, there's kind of like this... there's this like authentic vibe that comes from handheld filmmaking that's kind of hard to replicate with what we do. A lot of things we do are polished, and I mean we are maintaining authenticity.
It's polished as much as we can.
Yeah, there's times when we pose couples. A lot of our things, there's motion incorporated, but it's not running through a field most of the time.
We've also been attempting to keep more things in real time. Yeah. Rather than slowing it all down, and like handheld is all real time.
There's a lot of people who get heated in our industry about overusing slow motion, and I think we're doing an okay job at not just leaning on it.
I think do I think it can be overused? Absolutely. But I also think it's our style.
It's what our couples want.
Exactly. We're good at it. It's what our couples wants. So I see no problem with us continuing to do what we're doing.
Yeah. I think that's why some people are kind of trending towards the handheld side of things, because there's a lot of people on social media in their ear telling them like, you need to do everything exactly authentic. You can't pose anybody and you can't ever use slow motion if you want your films to be real.
That's just not true.
It's just not true. You're putting them into another box. And then there's going to be the whole reverse side of the argument where it's like, oh, maybe you should use slow motion again. We'll get into another cycle. But
right.
Yeah, I going back to it a little bit, I would like hire a handheld videographer.
I mean, yeah,
if it's the right one.
You've always been more like not open to it, but you've always enjoyed that more than I have. Like for years, you've definitely liked and always attempted handheld way more often than I ever have.
Yeah, and I think kind of the authenticity element of it comes from, I guess, the documentary genre. Basically, you go watch kind of like modern Netflix documentaries, and a lot of the time when somebody's trying to kind of portray something as authentic in the moment, they're using handheld real-time footage, and it might look a little bit more raw, a little bit more shaky, but it's done that way purposefully. I think the handheld videographers who do it well, they're coupling it with really, really, really good lighting and really, really, really good colors. Like if you're taking shaky footage and crappy lighting, then it's just kind of, there's no way it's going to look good.
Well, I'll also say this, correct me if I'm wrong, but on like those bigger kind of Netflix type stuff, when it is handheld, isn't it mostly on an easy rig?
Yeah.
So it's not handheld as like the wedding videographers would be fully handheld. It is different. There is a little extra bit of stabilization to it that's not just fully you running around.
Well, then you have your Justin Porters out there who run around at weddings with an easy rig filming a reality TV style.
And that's like and he's phenomenal at it.
Yeah. But then he's trying to convince everybody that they need to do that. And that's like the only way you're going to make a good wedding film, because all these slow motion films are terrible. It's like, no, trying to like put things into a box.
You're good at that. Do that. People want that. We're good at this. People want this.
Yeah. Do what you're good at. And, your target niche will find you. Or if you're somebody shopping around for a wedding vendor, it's like really watch those films and decide what you connect with. Because there could be other things to those people's style that that you end up connecting with more. Like I think we ask a lot of couples, like when we're talking to them to the first time, it's like, what drew you to us? Like why do you like what we do? And some of them cite kind of like the smooth motion and the things like that, but a lot of them cite kind of what we do with audio in our films.
Well, yeah, that's why I threw in the word narrative earlier, because like there's
a whole visual side to style, but there's also an audio or sound style,
which is like the worst part of the day by far, managing all the audio.
It's so hard, guys.
Like there's so many things that also just go wrong. Every time something will go wrong.
Yeah.
And so like just the management of that sucks, but we do it because it's worth it in the end. And that's how we are really able to tell our stories, like through the people.
Because then otherwise, it's a slow motion montage. And
exactly.
That's just
and that's a thing. Like people do that.
Some people
that's
like
not
it.
Our style.
Yeah. There's more to a wedding day than a slow motion montage. And that's where I think all the hate on slow motion comes from, is some people they don't really lean into the audio and that side of the storytelling. And I think there's other things we're doing more recently, like incorporating some more sound design and atmospheric elements into it to try and like really transport people back to the day.
It's the differentiator. Like anyone who knows how to edit any video, just cutting things together, can cut together a wedding like montage video.
Oh yeah.
It's literally just slow motion B-roll that you just slap together. It doesn't even really need to be in any order. It's just a highlight of the day. Boom, they're done. And then you could take it one step further by making it in a proper order where it actually tells a story. Then you can take it a couple of steps further than that and add the audio, which differentiates us even more. And that's why our films are not just a slow motion montage.
Yeah. There's also the whole thing of like clip placement and like which clips you use where and why. And I think some of the hate that gets thrown on kind of like the slow motion videographers is like they don't put things in they don't place things intentionally. And I think I mean, I'm overusing that word, but it's something that we try to focus on. I'll give everybody an example from a recent film we created. There was a section where the groom was talking to his soon-to-be wife about how he admires her strong qualities, and he's come from a very, strong, strong line of women. His mother had passed away at some point in his life, and it was a really powerful moment in the film. And we intentionally, we used audio. It was in a fast portion of the song, and we needed to place it there. So we used audio, we ducked it down, we reverbed it, made it sound a little slower and deeper so that his words were kind of like that much more powerful. And we used clips of, he had kind of like a little pin of his mom, and there were photos of her and things like that. We used those clips and then also tied it back to these shots that we got of the bride where she was looking very strong and beautiful. And, there's moments like that in the film where those parts are selected very intentionally. And I think that's what kind of, that's what separates our style from some people who just chuck clips in a timeline,
Right.
Not to toot our own horn, but that's the amount of thought that goes into these things. Like, it's such an important day in your life, and we want to make sure that, we're doing our due diligence to highlight your story in that way. So yeah, that was that
got deep.
It got a little deep, and little bit of a plug, but that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, like, take your time to figure out which style of filmmaking you resonate with, because you might hate our films, and that's okay. Don't hire us if you hate our films.
Totally fine. Like, not everyone has to like our films.
Yeah.
But as someone said, our people will find us.
Yeah.
So the people that do resonate with us, they'll find us.
Yeah. And we're always experimenting too. We're always trying some new things, trying to keep it fresh, but kind of like honestly, the basis of our
that's
style.
what makes it like bearable, I guess.
Of course.
Because like, if we didn't try new things, it would literally be the same thing every single time.
Yeah.
Like, we would show up at the wedding. I mean, sure,
every wedding is different.
Every wedding is going to be different, but like, the general layout is the same. Everyone has a ceremony. Everyone has a reception. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be, or most of the time, there's going to be some toast. There's going to be dances. So we know the layout of the day.
Sometimes best men give the same speech over and over again.
Yeah. So like, it,
for those who don't know me,
for us who do a lot of weddings, it can get repetitive.
Yeah. So we try to keep it fresh.
Yeah. The only way we can make it more entertaining for us and like make things different is to experiment.
Yeah. There's another side to style too that like you have to keep in mind, because a lot of vendors will make sure that you've reviewed their style, because it's in their contract too, that if you ask them to edit in a different way than they've portrayed their work.
Well, it's in our contract. At least.
It's in our contract. I think it's in most photographers and videographers contract. Is kind of like a style clause. It's like, you need to make sure you do connect with that, because if you hire a vendor, if you hire us for our cinematic elegant style and you're like, why didn't you guys film Super 8? Then it's like,
that's not what we do.
It's not what we do. At least, unless
and
you guys
we
want
have
us
final
to
say
film
in the
Super 8.
style. Sorry, what was that?
I was saying, unless you guys want us to film Super 8, we can work on it.
Like, see, we've talked about this in the last like 24 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. I just have no idea how to.
I'd be open to experiment, because people have asked us about it, and I'm like, does it fit with what we do? It definitely fits with the handheld style. I see all those people doing it.
Really, as of right now, if we don't change anything, it doesn't really fit our style, and it's just really a matter of like we said, we're always evolving, always changing. But do we want to change that drastically just to incorporate Super 8? Not sure yet. but to be determined.
Yeah. One more thing on kind of like videography style, because I want to talk about photography too.
We'll go into photography, yeah.
But I remember you were editing a highlight film for a friend of ours who kind of like has this.
Yeah.
They do the handheld style, and their films are phenomenal. I think their finished films are absolutely amazing, and they do a lot of great work to make sure that they're always doing something fun and innovative and creative and stuff. But I remember you looking at their footage and you're like, I don't know what to do with this.
Okay, so it was just because they film so differently than we do.
Yeah.
They film handheld on monopods and very occasionally on a gimbal.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm so used to everything is on a gimbal. Like we barely even film on tripods. We have like a couple of tripods throughout the day, but we are like 90% gimbal all day.
Yeah.
So I'm so used to those like
guys.
smooth motions. Also just our style of filming, we have a couple passes at things to make sure we get it. Whereas the people I was editing like didn't film the same way we do. So that was also different and hard for me to kind of adjust. But it was a weird process for sure. Like I made it. So like, here's the story. I'm not gonna say names so I don't get anyone in trouble. But basically, one of our friends asked another one of our friends to edit.
They're gonna figure it out.
Listen, someone asked to edit a film.
It's in the past. It's fine.
It was like 2 or 3 years ago. Who cares at this point?
Yeah.
Someone asked a friend to edit a film because they had a lot of films going on. They just needed help editing. So this one friend said, "Yeah, sure, I got you." Come time to edit, they got like this like trailer down. Trailer looked great. They called all the footage. Everything was like ready to go. Music laid out. Tracks were in. Simply just inserting the footage. But they got crazy busy. So then they didn't have time. So then they were like, "Hey, Nick, can you help me finish this?" So then I was the one to put all the B-roll in and like lay out the entire highlight film. And then I gave it back to my friend, who then gave it back to the other people. But the other people had no idea that he outsourced it to me. So I basically secretly edited a wedding film for them.
Well, if you are these people who filmed this wedding and you're listening to this, now you know. Nick edited that film for you.
I mean, as far as I know, they liked it. So I think it came out all right.
Yeah.
It was like a couple years ago. So I don't know.
It goes to show how different something,
so different.
How different the same medium can be, and how like you need to vet those vendors before you hire them.
And like you were saying, on paper, when we get to the level we're at, all of our deliverables are essentially exactly the same.
Yeah.
No one has anything crazy because there isn't really anything crazy you can
probably
offer.
a few differences here and there.
So
but
on paper, everyone's going to look the same. It really just depends on the style.
Exactly. Talked about style for video. There's a few different styles of photography as well, because all these same principles apply. You know, you're gonna get like the same set of deliverables you're gonna see over and over again, like gallery of however many 100 photos, and you know, sometimes people have little album books and things like that. All those things, you can only do so much differentiation with that, but photography, visual style is huge, you know?
Yeah, for us here, we see a handful of styles. There's like the warm, kind of like just like orangey type edits, just warm all around. There can be like the golden hour type stuff. There's like kind of dark and moody sometimes, and then there's like the bright and airies. And is there anything? What's another?
I would call true to color.
True to color. Okay, yeah.
I would say it's separate from light and airy. But there's, again, 4 photographers could edit the same image 4 different ways. It could look completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah. Do you have a preferred style when it comes to color?
I have another question that's in the same vein.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, you're saying like for a photo to be edited, or like
photo, but also
for myself. Like if it was my own.
You're hiring a photographer for your wedding.
Okay. Yeah.
What style are you hiring?
I would probably go, I would say one of these two, either the warm golden or bright and airy.
Interesting.
Not like crazy. I did not
expect you to say
not
warm
crazy
golden.
Warm golden.
Okay.
But like subtle. Like there are some that we know who would go a little too hard, and I don't like that. But I do prefer like a subtle warmth. And then the bright and airy, I feel like is always a safe option. Like I don't think that style is going to go anywhere ever. So I think that will always be safe.
Yeah, because there's a whole, you got to think about this too. Like these photos are going to go up in your house essentially. And you got to think about like what's still going to be appealing to you.
Like grooms sometimes ask us that, like when one guy was wearing a green suit, he was like, yeah, I was really afraid that it wasn't going to work out and like I will hate it later on. But as of today, I'm really liking it.
As of today, check back in 20 years.
Exactly.
It was a nice green suit.
It looked good. But yeah, I don't know. In 20, 15 years, like who knows?
What was I thinking, man?
Honestly, he very well might think that.
I'm gonna wear a black suit and we're
you
like
can
tux
never
type
go
thing
wrong
on
with black.
on my wedding.
Okay, my question to you though was gonna be like, in terms of the style of photographers, whether it's like the warmth, whatever, because like not just the editing style, but like their styles will differ also in terms of how they capture things. What style of photographer is better or worse for you to actually work with, or like does it matter
to work with? We've worked with the whole spectrum.
With everyone, yeah.
I think as long as photographers, if they're the type of photographer who needs to kind of do a lot of still stuff and they need to meticulously pose things, like that's fine. As long as they gave us a little bit of time to capture some stuff with motion, I think that's the only time we run into anything. Like color-wise, we don't care. Like it doesn't make a difference on the day. The people who incorporate some more motion into their posing allows us to work a little bit more efficiently because we can capture some similar things. And when we have poses that we do, they can capture that and it's not, totally different from what they do. But when there's photographers kind of just standing the couple in one spot and like moving an arm here and there, it does
happen.
It's happened plenty of times. It just doesn't make as good of a moment for video. It doesn't feel as authentic on video. So
right there, I think it's slightly more difficult, and I say that with quotes, like not difficult, but difficult to work with those types of photographers who do that style. But as long as, like I said, as long as they give us time to then break them out of the pose and give us time to do a couple things that we want to do, then it doesn't really matter. Just, the timeline, efficiency's sake, like if we need to spend an extra 5 minutes, if we're allowed to, then it will work. But if not, then it makes it a little hard.
There's also a little style with lenses too, because
so that's more of an issue, I feel.
Yeah, because just if you're somebody who's not a creator or something and you're not familiar with cameras and stuff, we use bunch of different lenses based on the different looks we want. And so there's things called focal length. Simply put, it's a measure of how wide or tight your image is. The lower the number, the wider the image is, the higher the number, the tighter. And so we are kind of in the 35 millimeter to 50 millimeter range most of the time. We go tighter for ceremonies. But there's some photographers who, and I mean, I hear the same thing coming from photographers too, where some videographers go like a little too wide. And so sometimes those people, if they want a close-up shot, they get too close. I mean, you had a wedding this past year.
Yeah, like I can understand needing a wide angle and like needing to get a little closer than we ever would. Like I can get that. But what I can't get is during the ceremony, you are like everyone's sitting, the couple is standing at the altar, and the photographer just walks up, I kid you not, less than 1.5 feet, 2 feet away, holds the camera up to their face and just starts snapping away.
On a 24 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
I just know that doesn't look good either.
It was insane. I was like, what are you doing? Like, first off, you're getting in my way. So that's the first thing I care about. Like, get the heck out of my way. Second of all, you're totally invading their personal space. So like that makes them uncomfortable. And then you're disrupting the entire ceremony.
Yeah.
Like people are trying to watch and you're standing there. Like, no, get out of there.
Yeah. Luckily, I think we choose our lenses similar to what the majority of photographers will be
right. For the most part, I mean, yeah, I think primarily a lot of photographers do use a 35 and either a 50 or an 85, which works well complementary to us.
Yeah. This is what we're operating on for most of the day. Cause yeah, if we're trying to get shots at the same time, specifically for those formality events, we want to be using similar lenses. I'm sure photographers probably don't love like speeches. We're only using telephoto stuff. And so we're always like wicked far away, but hey, that's more important for us anyway.
I think it's okay though, because like, it's like a narrow thing. So they could like get pretty close as long as they're like just a foot to the side.
Yeah.
So like, I think it still works.
Yeah. Basically.
Plus they don't really care about those. They literally tell us we just need like 5 photos and we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that whole aspect to it with photographers. It's like if they're primarily working on wider lenses, like sometimes we might just have to trade off, spend a little bit more time getting the shots we need in those situations. There's also the whole conversation with flash and lighting at reception, because some photographers will spray their flash and like kind of just looks like paparazzi in the video, which, it's fine because that's what was happening in the moment.
I'm personally not gonna get mad at anyone using a flash, even if they use it an absurd amount of times. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, I haven't really seen many people just spray their flash.
There's I've heard stories of couples being upset with flash showing up in the video, and it's like if it's
not possible to avoid, like when you only get one chance to do something, like we can't redo the first kiss with no flash.
Exactly. And I mean, there's been moments where photographers have had to use flash. It's been like a dimly lit, like getting ready thing. And if it's that situation where flash doesn't feel as natural to just appear in the video, it feels like there's being a photo taken. I'll just get a shot. Second time I'll be like, hey, like, do you mind if I just get the shot right now? Do you mind turning off the flash for a second? And usually they're cool with it.
For those one try things where you can do it multiple times, do it multiple times. Yeah. It's not that hard just to take 5 seconds after they're done taking photos. Like, hold off 1 sec. I'm going to step in, get your shot. Boom, done.
Yeah.
But yeah, for those like non-negotiables where like they need to do their flash during the one-time things, totally fine. I get they have a job to do. They can flash away. And then we have our lights during the reception that we need. And we're not going to turn them off because we need them for us.
Yeah. We get more, some videographers get flack from photographers for having like lights set up during the reception. It's like, we have a kit that's very small in the corner off to the side. And I would say 99% of the photographers that we work with are grateful that we have some.
For the most part, they're like very
going.
Happy. Very few times have they had like a negative response.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. When you're considering hiring like videographers and photographers, maybe hire some that are kind of like similar in style. I mean, if you can, you're never going to know exactly how they work on the day unless they kind of like run you through their process. But if you have a preferred look in terms of color, sometimes those things go hand in hand. If you like the look of a lot of motion in poses, then that's going to work well as a photographer when you go to also hire a videographer. I want to go back to color for a second, because there's also a color style with video that some people hire for. And I mean, it kind of does also fit into the same kind of categories. You have like a warm golden style, you have a dark and moody, you have a light and airy, and a true to color. I think those are kind of like the main four. I would say ours is towards the true to color.
In the true to color range, yeah.
And there's also like a distinct kind of like look to it that makes it, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not like exactly how it appeared in real life. There's like a little sauce to it. I don't even know how to describe it for ourselves. But then there's other videographers who have kind of like the super golden, super warm look to it. And I mean, that's fine, but just know that's what you're getting into. I mean, that the whole reason we're having this conversation is there's been that whole scandal a few months ago with the Sepia Bride and Sepia Gate and stuff like that, where she hired a golden photographer and was expecting true to color photos. You know, same thing happens with video as well. So it's important to kind of consider all those things. But yeah. And I mean, there's probably like style for other vendors too, like florists, but anything where there's like a creative element to it, you have to be hiring for the style.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, very important to think about if you're going to a wedding, hire for the style, not always the price tag, but also definitely consider the price tag and don't go broke.
Yes. That.
Any other closing thoughts?
Nah, that's about it. Yeah.
Sweet.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys found this insightful. If you did, give us a 5-star review on Spotify.
It's not hard. One button.
I need to review your podcast. I've never done that. I will do it after this. But yeah, give us a 5-star review. Give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, all the above. And then give us a follow on Instagram at SeaMount Weddings. And if you are a couple looking to book wedding videography, head over to SeaMountWeddings.com. You won't be disappointed. We got some good stuff over there. If you like
won't be disappointed.
You won't be disappointed. If you like a cinematic and elegant style,
some true to color there.
Yeah, venture on over and give us a call. We'll chat. All right,
God.
See you guys.
Bye.